I have the lovely Bramley with me, and you're probably wondering what I'm doing with this great big trolley of stuff. This is our art enrichment trolley. So this comes out every day for the dogs, and we've got loads of different enrichment on there. Now, I did speak to you about free feeding, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this, obviously, in this video, because actually it's really important. If you have a dog that's suffering from separation anxiety or finding it really difficult to create some space and they get really upset when you go, this is a great way of combating that, because what you are doing is you're splitting up the feeds. So the feeds means that there's great serotonin going throughout their body through the whole of the day. And that's actually really super important. The other thing that really helps is actually getting them to do something, because you'll probably find most of the dogs that have over attachment issues are quite clever dogs. So they're the overthinkers in life, and they think too much about things. So I'm just going to pop this down. Now, we've got all different types of enrichment. Now, we get these off Amazon or anywhere, but I'm just going to go through them. Now, everyone has got a baking tray at home. I know you have. So you've got a muffin tray or something like that. Now, you can either put socks in there if you haven't got loads of tennis balls like we have. And the idea is I'm just going to cover up some food in there and just make it a little bit easier and see if Bramley can figure out how to move those balls. And that's actually a really good way of starting off some of the enrichment, is actually you want to show them what the process is, and then they've got to try and figure it out for themselves. So what that does, as you can see now, is I'm actually creating space with Bramley. So Bramley is busy doing his own thing, but I'm managing to step away. And this is why these enrichment activities are so super important, because they give the ability for the dog to really concentrate on something stimulating their mind, whilst you can actually create a little bit of space away from them. And that really helps. Now, I'm going to go through all of these types of enrichment because they all have their little place. So we have little squirrels here, so they've either got to pull those out and play with the squeakies. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of food in there as well, just so they can figure that out. So I'm just going to pop that on the floor. No! And see what Bramley thinks of that. Now, obviously, if you're feeding biscuit, it's a lot easier, because you can obviously put the biscuit into these items and then get the dog to, he's having a great time, get the dog to be able to get the items out. Now, obviously, if you're not and you're feeding raw, this is where some of these games come in really well, because you can clean them out really effectively. Then the bits don't get stuck, and it works really well. So we'll go through those ones in a bit more detail in a minute. So always when you're starting these games off, you want to show the dog how we're going to get those items out. Oh, what's this? Oh. So it really gives them a little bit of ability of, what am I supposed to do there? Obviously, their food will pick up the scent of the food, and they really try and get the heads in there as well. So it's a great way, as I said, to start that process of being able to create a little bit of space, because as you can see, Bramley is not paying any attention to me, and I can start moving away quite nicely. And that's what you want to be able to start doing, is creating that little bit of space. Now, these ones are great because they've really got to think about it. So I'm just going to swap out those ones. Woohoo! So the idea is you'll be splitting the feeds up during the day. So instead of having like breakfast and lunch, or whatever you have at the moment, breakfast, lunch and dinner, you want to be splitting those up into at least 6 sessions. So they're having different enrichment for every session. So I'm just going to load one of these up, and we'll see how he gets on. As I said before, you need to kind of give them an idea they need to push it, because they're going to start pushing their nose because they can smell what's underneath there. Oh, is that nice? And then you're going to start stepping away. Obviously, they will get more, they will get through these games quicker and quicker and quicker. It doesn't mean you have to swap them up as much. It just means that they just get quicker at doing them. And there's different levels. Obviously, they've got to open some of these flaps. Sometimes they've got to push them. whichever way goes, and that it works, as I said, works really well. So that's another one, another do-it-yourself one at home. I'm just going to grab a little bit of a mat here. Whew. Yes. And we'll just let Bramley finish that. Now again, as I'm talking to you, you can see that I can create wonderful space. So what we would eventually do, week 1, we're just going to do these games and we're going to start backing away and go and do something else in the house. Week 2, we're looking at maybe being able to close the door and leave him in the room just for a couple of seconds while he's busy doing that. And that will start to embed the response that actually being left to my own, it's not so bad. I can still see where mum is and it's not really scary. And that's how we're going to build that element. Super important when you're doing this, no excuses. I don't want any excuses saying I was too busy, I couldn't do it, I didn't have time to do it, because you've got to make time. And I know that sounds really harsh, but you've got to make time, because otherwise you're going to have a dog that's going to have over-attachment issues and it's going to be really difficult to unpick. Oh, are you busy? Are you busy, bee? Now, because you're doing the free feeding and you're doing it in enrichment, what that also does, as I said, it goes back to the serotonin, means they've got a level playing field all the way through the day. So they're being fed all the way through the day and they're not having dips. A bit like us, you know, I went for a 9-mile run this morning. If I don't get fed at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I get a bit hangry. So same as dogs, you know, it's super important you do that because that will really help with all those responses. So now we've got a bit of do-it-yourself enrichment. So if you've got just a towel or something like that, again, you can get their food. You're just going to wrap it up. Bramley! And I'm just going to do that. Woo! And then he's got to figure out to push it a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of a treat there. Let him see. Ooh! Go on then. Go on then. Ooh! And see if he can figure it out for himself. Now, the reason why I keep on saying these enrichment games are so good and why they need to figure it out for themselves is because it gives them the ability to actually be able to cope as well. Because you're saying you're not just doing free feeding that's going to help with the serotonin, you're not just giving yourself a little bit of space while they're doing something, but you're getting him to really think outside the box and giving him confidence, which is so important, that he can actually be on his own and it's not really horrendous. So give it a go at home.